If you've spent your life chasing success, checking every box, and still wondering, is this all there is? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Overachiever's Oracle podcast, a sacred space where we dive into the lives of professional women who've been taught to measure their worth by how much they achieve. Here, we explore a spiritually rooted path to untangle ourselves from hustle culture and reconnect with who we truly are. I'm your host, Dr. Giovanni Washington, a former overachiever turned liberation guide, and I'm here to walk you through this journey. Welcome to the show. I'm going to start today's episode with a story. I'm just going to dive right in. So, some months ago, I was doing boot camp, which was 6:15 at the gym a couple times a week. I love the class. It's circuit training. It's always new. I love it. In this particular class, we did a lot of things with weights in our hands. Now, typically the weights are 3, 5, 8 pounds, not terribly heavy. But when you're holding on to the weight for the whole time, like I guess I overworked my hand. Then I came home and I did a bunch of dishes. And I think I cooked 3 meals because sometimes I like to stack my cooking and put things in the freezer. And by the time I got in the bed that day, my hand was swollen. Like I'd never experienced this. The palm of my hand was swollen. And so over the next 2 weeks, the swelling would come and go. My fingers would tingle. The side of my hand, it was the pinky side of my right hand. The side of my hand would go numb. And one morning, I went to grab my tea, and I couldn't close my hand around the teacup. Like I couldn't grab the handle without being in searing pain. So I immediately took myself to urgent care. Now, this was maybe 2 weeks before Christmas. So I'm in the urgent care and, I'm in the room and I'm waiting for the doctor to come in. The doc walks in and it's this guy who clearly is Jewish. He's wearing a kippah or a yarmulke, the head covering that Jewish men wear. And I only mention it because it's relevant later. He examined me. He, pushed here, pushed there. Ow, that really hurts. Don't touch it there. He's like, oh yeah, you definitely have what's called ulnar or cubital tunnel syndrome. So it's like carpal tunnel, which is on the thumb side of your hand, but on the pinky side of your hand. And he says, well, you need to rest for 2 weeks. Usually it resolves after 2 weeks of rest. And I looked at him and I said, but it's Christmas. And we're hosting 25 people at our house next week. And when I tell you this man did not care, I'm guessing because he does not celebrate Christmas, he was unmoved by my Christmas plea. And he looked at me and he repeated, you need to rest your hand for 2 weeks if you want to improve. And I really wasn't sure how I was going to pull that off. So I did, I shared all this information with my family because if I'm not doing the things, that means they've got to do the things, right? And I did actually manage to sit still and not use my right hand, which is my dominant hand, for 5 days. And honestly, I felt so much better. And then as the time neared for our Christmas barbecue, which, we couldn't cancel the event, although I think we did actually consider it, but we couldn't cancel it because there were 25 people who were scheduled to come. It was the first time that we were doing it since since COVID. And here's the thing, we do this silly Christmas barbecue because before COVID, our stove broke when we were trying to have Christmas, and the piece that we needed wasn't going to be repaired for 2 weeks, but we live in LA and it was going to be 75 degrees. So we decided to have a barbecue. So now we have a Christmas barbecue, no matter what the weather is. So we were hosting this barbecue. And so, getting the house ready, doing all the food shopping, prepping all the food. I, of course, started doing things to help out my family. And, of course, I would then be in pain. Like, I could work for an hour, and then my arm would hurt for a couple of hours. Then I'd rest for an hour, then I could work for an hour. Then it would hurt. It was just this this terrible cycle. And I really started getting frustrated because my body was clearly screaming at me for a pause. But there was still this part of me that felt guilty for slowing down. And that's when it hit me that I really was equating rest with failure. Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever laid down to relax only to feel restless, anxious, or like you're wasting time? I know for me, when I'm honest and I look back over even the last 5 to 7 years, so many times my body has been like, hey, stop. And it's usually through illness or injury. And the prescription, the prescribed remedy is almost always rest. Sometimes there's some medication involved, but usually it's rest. And it's so very frustrating to me. So I started to really ask some questions, in my sitting in my days of frustration. I was like, what if this is not just about me? Like, what is it my body is trying to tell me? If I look at this through an ancestral lens, what am I going to find? And what I realize is that we hate rest, that I hate rest because there's a longitudinal historical reason for us hating rest. It's not just a quirk of modern day life. It's literally a direct vestige of enslavement, which was a system that conditioned us to believe that stopping, pausing, and even enjoying ourselves was dangerous. But it's important to remember, and you'll hear me say this again and again and again, why we have to go back to pre-colonial wisdom, is that before colonialism, before that massive rupture, our ancestors had rich traditions of rest, community, communal rejuvenation, and spiritual renewal. And we're going to reclaim that. So like we said in the last episode, not all change is transformation. And forcing ourselves to power down without addressing the deeper beliefs that we've internalized won't liberate us. So today, we're going to talk about why rest can feel like a punishment, what systems keep us afraid of. So today, we're going to talk about why rest can feel like a punishment, what systems keep us afraid of slowing down, and how we can begin to reclaim rest as radical, ancestral, and liberating. Take a deep breath with me. Deep breath with me. Take a deep breath with me. Breathe with me. One more time. And we're going to do a third breath today. Okay, let's dive in. So I used to think that rest was something that you earned, not something you deserved. And if I wasn't being productive, I felt like I was failing, like I was falling behind. And the thing is, I know that I'm not alone. So many of us, especially Black women, have been conditioned to believe that stopping is the problem, that slowing down is dangerous. And this belief 100% comes from slavery. For centuries, enslaved Black people were denied the right to rest. Our bodies were seen as laboring bodies, expected to work endlessly and without question. Rest was something that was violently controlled, dictated, and even punished. Any amount of stillness was stolen. But it didn't stop there. After emancipation, the same belief systems continued, rebranded under new names: sharecropping, Jim Crow, segregation, and systemic inclusion. I'm starting that sentence again. But it didn't stop there. After emancipation, the same belief systems continued, rebranded under new names like sharecropping, Jim Crow, segregation. Black people were expected to work under brutal conditions for little to no compensation. And any attempt to rest, resist, or slow down was met with financial instability, legal oppression, and in many cases, violent retribution. Fast forward to today, and those same dynamics have been repackaged. The idea that Black people must constantly prove their worth through labor has shaped our culture's expectations. Employers expect Black employees to overperform, all while underpaying them. Black women in particular are praised for their resilience, but rarely supported in their need to pause. You can also think about how the culture of Black excellence reinforces the idea that rest is for other people. We celebrate things like the hustle, grinding, pushing through, but we never consider the cost. When we internalize the belief that stopping means failure, we become complicit in a system that was designed to keep us exhausted. And then there's the labor laws. The fact that the U.S. has no federally mandated paid leave, that's a direct continuation of forced labor dynamics of enslavement. Black workers, especially low-wage jobs, are disproportionately affected by lack of benefits, unpredictable work schedules, and jobs that don't even allow time for physical recovery. We have been conditioned to think that rest is a luxury, when in reality, it's a right that has been systematically denied to us. Over time, rest has become, perhaps deliberately and methodically, synonymous with laziness. If you're not working twice as hard, you're not working hard enough. And that didn't just affect individuals, it shaped entire communities. It made us believe that stopping meant losing everything. And that's why so many of us today, even when we can rest, don't know how to. But what happens when we actually try? What happens when we finally sit still and instead of relief, we feel restless, anxious, or even guilty? Have you ever felt worse when you slow down? Like something in your body physically resisted it? There's a reason for that. For some, rest feels like punishment. I once admitted this to clients in my Liberation Alchemy course, thinking that I was offering a big moment of transparency and vulnerability. One of my clients nodded her head, came off mute and said, "Yeah, I think rest is torture. Torture!" And that word slapped me upside the head so hard. It was sharp, it was searing. I was like, oh dear. It really struck a nerve because I knew deep down that I wasn't the only one who felt this way. I just didn't realize how profoundly it affected other people as well. So many of us have been conditioned to equate stillness with failure, weakness, and worthlessness. Does rest as torture ring true for any of you? It can feel like torture because when we stop moving, we're left with everything we've been trying to avoid. Our thoughts, our fears, our unmet needs. Because we've been trained to believe that exhaustion is evidence of our value. That if we're not pushing ourselves to the brink, we're not doing enough. The moment we pause, the thoughts creep in. I should be doing something productive. Other people are working harder than me. I don't deserve to rest until I accomplish something extraordinary. It's a shame spiral, and it is exhausting. I've had clients who were completely burnt out, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and still could not let themselves rest because the guilt was heavier than the exhaustion. And that's the thing, right? This guilt, it didn't come out of nowhere. We didn't just wake up one day feeling bad about slowing down. This was taught to us. The belief that rest is something that we have to earn is a myth. It's a dangerous one. And it's time that we exposed it. We've been convinced that rest is a privilege. But who benefits from when we hate rest? Not us, not our communities, but capitalism and white supremacy. They thrive on our exhaustion. They need us tired. They need us to be so drained that we don't have energy to resist, to organize, to imagine something better. When we are overworked, we are easier to control. It's the grind now, rest later lie that keeps us in cycles of burnout. We've been told if we just work hard enough, someday, one day, we will earn the right to slow down. But that day never comes because the system isn't designed for us to rest. Think about it. If hard work truly led to rest, our elders, our mothers, our grandmothers would be resting. And I don't know about you, but my mother almost never sits down. My great aunts who are 90 years old, they're still pressing their own hair in the kitchen, right? And their houses are spotless. They never sit down. They've never gotten the chance to rest. We've inherited the same exhaustion, believing that it was the only way to survive. And then there's also this lie of balance. We're told that if we just schedule rest into our busy lives, it'll all work out. But let's be honest. How many times have you scheduled rest only to cancel it? Just last week, I did an experiment in my Liberation Alchemy course. I invited the participants to put in unfettered rest into their calendars. They had to actually block and protect time. It wasn't called unfettered rest. It was called something else. It was called, I'm looking at my phone right now. Hold on. I'm sorry. It was called unapologetic rest. Just last week, I asked the folks in my Liberation Alchemy pod to schedule unapologetic rest, to literally put it in their calendars and see if they could actually make it happen, to honor it when it showed up in their calendars. Because we shouldn't have to wait until we're falling apart to allow ourselves to pause. So, if we know that rest is necessary, and we know that the system is designed to keep us from it, what do we do? Well, we don't have to figure this out alone, because our ancestors already left us a blueprint. Before colonialism, before capitalism, and before grind culture, our people built entire societies around sustainable rest. And those traditions, they're still here. We just have to reclaim them. Ancestral wisdom offers us another truth, that rest is power, rest is protection, and that rest is necessary. And at a time when burnout is the norm, at a time when we are being assaulted by the crazy political stuff that's happening every day, we need their wisdom more than ever. Ancestral wisdom gives us a blueprint for resilience. They show us strategies to navigate struggle, injustice, and change. Ancestral wisdom also gives us a path to healing, because many of the wounds that we carry, whether it's trauma or disconnection or feelings of being lost, whatever it is, they're not just personal. These are historical, ancestral wounds. And tapping into ancestral wisdom allows us to heal, not just for ourselves, but for those who came before, and also for those who came after. Let's claim back these stolen traditions. So just to name a couple, in Ghana, there's something called the Ade Festival. It is a periodic day of rest and ancestral veneration. It happens, Ade actually translates into the resting place, and it happens every 6 weeks, and at the end of 9 cycles, it coincides with the new year. And so then there's a big resting place festival, a big Ade festival, and the whole practice reinforces the community bonds. It provides structured rest and reflection, and creates space for your communion with the ancestors. I love this. Among the Serer people of Senegal, Monday is a traditionally observed day of rest. So the usual cultural activities like wrestling matches or weddings are avoided, right? And this underscores the community's commitment to rest, reflection, and spiritual observance. So again, we're making space to engage in our spiritual practices, which rejuvenate us. And I'll give you just a third example of among the Zulu and the Xhosa people. I'm sure that's the click sound that I cannot make, Xhosa. Dreaming is rest, right? Sleep is an ancestral communication. Sleep is sacred, a time where ancestors can speak and offer guidance. And cutting sleep short wasn't just bad for your body, it was seen as cutting off divine messages. So what if we reframe sleep not as wasted time, but as a spiritual practice? Does that make you approach it differently? All of that is to say that ancestral wisdom is not outdated. It is a living, breathing force that we can all call on to navigate today's challenges. So in Liberation Alchemy, we talk about defining things for yourself. Things like success, liberation, rest. And so we'll probably explore this in another episode, but rest is definitely more than just sleep, right? It's play, it's pleasure, it's stillness, it's silliness, it's community. All of these are forms of rest. There's ritual, there's prayer, there's connection with nature. Things that can replenish you are things that will help you rest. So rest is really whatever rejuvenates you. And you can get your ancestors in on the fun. So there's a practice I like to engage in called the ancestral pause. And what you do, now literally this can take 60 seconds. You can pause the podcast and listen. There is a practice I like to engage in called the ancestral pause. Now you can do this for as long as you like, but you can also do it in 60 seconds. And the idea is that you breathe. You can do square breathing, you can do 4-7-8 breathing, whatever kind of breathing works for you. You breathe in, you breathe out, you can breathe in and out 3 times. You breathe in, you breathe out, you breathe in, you exhale. And for 60 seconds, just 1 minute, imagine your ancestors surrounding you. Imagine them coming in from faraway lands, from faraway times, but they are supporting you. They are standing in a circle around you in concentric circles. They are supporting each other as they support you. Let yourself be still. Let yourself listen. And ask yourself, what message do you have for me about rest? And ask your ancestors, what message do you have for me about rest? And then let yourself be still. Let yourself listen. And when you come back to your body, when you come back to yourself, sometimes you can rub your hands together to help yourself get back into your body. Recognize that, 1, you may have received a message, and 2, that was rest. That was a restful rebellion, a rebellion against the system that tells you stopping is dangerous. So today I want to leave you with a very simple sentence. Rest is not something that you earn. It's something that you return to. And that every time you refuse to rest, you are upholding a system that is built to destroy you. Your rest is a revolution.